With the permission of Chief Guest Dr. Mesranji, can we start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸದಸ್ಯರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good morning to all the members of the Institute of Town Planners India. The Karnataka Regional Chapter has organized this technical webinar on this day on different topics. Today we have with us Dr. Mesramji, the President, Institute of Town Planner, New Delhi, who has agreed to grace the occasion and to be the chief guest for this webinar. I welcome Dr. Mesramji to this webinar as chief guest on behalf of Karnataka Regional Chapter. And we also have with us Sri Pradeep Kapoor, the Secretary General, Institute of Town Planner, New Delhi, as a guest of honor. And I also welcome Sri Pradeep Kapoor to this webinar on behalf of the Karnataka Regional Chapter, and he has extended all support to the Karnataka Regional Chapter in organizing this webinar. We have with us another guest of honor, Sri Shashi Kumar, the Director of Town Planning, Government of Karnataka, who has been good enough to accept our invitation and to be with us in this morning. Friends, we have with us the most important members of the Institute of Town Planners, all the members, especially the members other than Karnataka Regional Chapter. I heartily welcome all those members to this webinar organized by the Karnataka Regional Chapter. And finally, the main personalities of the technical webinar are the key speakers. I welcome Sri Sivanand Swami, SEPT University, to this webinar, who will deliver his speech on BRTS Hubli Dharwad, which is the local theme of this webinar. We also have with us Dr. Anjali Mohan, who will be delivering our talk on managing and steering India's cities and towns looking beyond the master plan tool. I welcome Dr. Anjali Mohan to this seminar. And friends, we all know that Hubli Dharwad is the second most important and biggest city in Karnataka. And by this, I mean, as per 2011 census, today I think it is the metropolitan city. We have one metropolitan city as per 2011 census, and today as per 2020 or 2021 census, which will come quite early, and we will be adding two more metropolitan cities, Mysore and Hubli Dharwad. I think recently the government of India has designated the railways in the name of Siddharudha Matha Swamiji. That is one of the important mass transportation things we have. Friends, the Hubli Dharwad, the most dynamic city in Karnataka, has been characterized by quite different economic activities. Dharwad being the educational and service center, Hubli is being the most commercial center of the state of Karnataka. And we have a lot of increasing activity, movement of men and material between Hubli Dharwad, and Sri Sivanand Swami will deliver how the mass transportation has been in these days, with personalized vehicles increasing every day. So we will see when what will Sri Sivanand Swami ji will have to deliver on this particular subject. And again, we all know that the most of our urban areas have been facing a lot of problems, especially with the pandemic situation, the natural disasters, and many other things. And we have been tackling our urban areas with the most accepted tool of master plan, and we will see that how Anjali is going to address, to solve our urban problems, and she is going beyond, master plan tool. Let us look into those things. And friends, I again welcome all guests and dignitaries and members of the Institute for this webinar. And the entire program today will last for about 1 hour, 10 minutes. And with the introduction of speakers and with the, address of the guest of honors. And after speakers completion, then we will have questions for 10 to 15 minutes. And then we will have concluding remarks by our chief guest, Sri Mesramji, and then we will conclude the entire meeting with vote of thanks by Sri Narayan Gowda, the Secretary of the Karnataka Regional Chapter. Now, may I request Sri Pradeep Kapoor to address the gathering in few minutes. Sri Pradeep Kapoor.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
At the outset, I appreciate the Karnataka Regional Chapter to identifying two very, very important themes for today's webinar. And I support at this point of time, in the present circumstances, we have to think beyond the master plan. The reason being, I worked for almost 37, 38 years in the state government. And every time we are blamed that our master plans are not implementable because the town planners are always considered as a soft target. Nobody thinks that the failure of master plan owes to the poor implementation mechanism or lack of enforcement by the concerned agencies. But at the same time, we cannot shirk our responsibilities that there is a scope of improvement of our master plans. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Indian urban planning and development is carried out within the framework of master plans. So master plans are prepared with the aim of orderly planned development, and we have concentrated only on the generalized land use planning. That is the crux of the problem. This is my experience. And the master plans are termed as static, rigid, and lack of dynamism. They don't keep pace with the speed of urbanization in India. We have prepared the master plan with the watertight compartments of land use planning, even within a broad land use, like say institutional use. We further specify that within that institutional use zone, we specify this is for hospital, this is for engineering college, this is for university. And we always say that within that institutional use, only the hospital is permitted. So we have created the watertight compartment, and we have invited criticism from the administrators or our political bosses or implementing agencies. In the process, the users are permitted by the local agencies against the specified use of master plans. For such master plans, it is experienced that they suffer, the cities suffer with the haphazard development or unplanned growth. Though I always consider that the failure of implementation of master plan doesn't only owe to the quality of master plan. It also, the implementation, lack of implementation mechanism and the enforcement are also responsible for failure of the master plans. But since we are the soft target, master plans are always considered as the baby of town planners. Nobody owes it. And these master plans are always treated as impediment in urban development process. To overcome this situation, my feeling is that this is the time we must think beyond master plans. And you have very rightly chosen this subject, that what is beyond the tool of master plan in the planning and development of urban areas in the countries. To keep pace with the rapid urban development in our cities, a rational, inclusive, sustainable plans are required which provides better quality of life to the citizens, including the weaker sections of the society. We have seen this during this pandemic, what was the situation of the weaker section of urban areas. We named them as a migratory workers, but even those who are the citizens of that particular city, they doesn't have shelter over their head. The other important issue you have touched today, because I feel the mobility of people in urban areas is a key factor for the development of city. In urban transportation, 3 S are required: safe, secure, and swift mobility of people from one place to another for whatever objective they are traveling. Now, I think we should add another S in that. So it makes 4S: secure, swift, safe, and smart mobility. And we have the expert of smart mobility, Professor Shivanand Swami. I hope that he will touch all these 4S of transportation system in our urban areas. Once again, I appreciate the selection of theme, and I hope that today we have 2 learned speakers with us. One is talking on the tool beyond the master plan, Dr. Anjali Mohan, and Professor Shivanand Swami, who is talking on the urban transport. Once again, thank you to the chapter chairman and executive committee of Karnataka Regional Chapter. I welcome all the participants on, and I hope that there will be active participation from all the attendees in this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. I think we all know that master plans have been prepared for many cities in India, and we try to solve the problems of our urban areas through physical planning, through land use planning and other things. But in spite of that one, we have been facing seasonal problems in our urban areas. Today, all the cities and areas have been flooded with lots of problems, and people are homeless. Water is flowing on the road, water is flowing into the homes and all these things. Why these things are happening in spite of our planned efforts to solve these problems? Because a lot of problems are going to happen when the conflicting land uses happen and the enforcement authorities try to do something with conflicting areas like sensitive areas, low-lying areas, and other things. So these are all some of the issues in urban planning, and we have with us Sri Shivanand Swami, the popular transport specialist and the pride of Karnataka, Sri Shivanand Swami. who has been contributed to the field of urban mobility in India. And now I request Sri Lakshmikant Pawar, who is the senior member of the Institute of Town Planners, Karnataka Regional Chapter, and Joint Director and Executive Committee member, to introduce Sri Sivanand Swami to the attendees. Sri Pawar. Sri Pawar is there? Okay. I think audio is not connected and he is not connected.
I think Professor doesn't need any introduction. As far as urban transportation is concerned.
Yeah, I will do that one.
I think you can skip that introduction. I will say a few words about myself and I can.
I will introduce Professor Ji. I will introduce myself because there may be some problem with Mr. Pawar. Professor Sivanand Swami, an economist and urban regional planning has been an educator, researcher, and policy advisor and consultant on the urban development planning and management. As an academician, he has been involved in teaching at CHEP University since 1986, and he has been teaching and research interests are in land use transportation planning, public transportation, transportation economics, and finance. He is instrumental in conceptualization and introduction of master degree programs in infrastructure planning and urban transport planning. Currently involved in developing and work integrated master degree program in urban transport management for service officials. He is currently leading the Leaders Program in urban transport planning and management, aimed at building leadership in urban transport development in India. The program is supported by the Ministry of Urban Development and the World Bank. Professor Swami has been instrumental in upgrading CEP University for an autonomous institute to that of university. He has been a member of several national level committees constituted by Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India. Friends, we have Professor Swami has over 3 decades of extensive professional experience in related fields of urban development and planning, and urban transport policy, public transportation and management, BRTS planning. I think when we say see Sivanand Swami, the name goes synonymous with introduction of BRTS. I think here Swami has also made a lot of contribution in executing and preparing the plans and executing the BRTS system for Hubli Dharwad, the most dynamic city of the state of Karnataka. So with this, I request Sri Swami to speak start his presentation on the subject.
Please enable me to share my presentation. Administrator.
Admin, please assist him.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ಸಿಂದಗೇರಿ ಅಂತ ಬಳ್ಳಾರಿ ಹತ್ರ ಬಳ್ಳಾರಿ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಹಳ್ಳಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟು ಬೆಳೆದದ್ದು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಓದಿದ್ದು. ಅದ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಕುರುಗೋಡು ಅಂತ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಊರು, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮಾನ್ವಿ ಅಂತ ರಾಯಚೂರು ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡದಲ್ಲಿ 75ರಿಂದ 78 ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಕಾಲೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿದ್ದು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾನು ಬಂದಿದ್ದು ಅಹಮದಾಬಾದ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಬನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೀಜನಲ್ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಓದ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಅವತ್ತಿಂದ ನಾನು ಬಂದವನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗ ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ ಅವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ನೆನಪಿದೆ, ಆದಿತ್ಯವಾರ ಯಾವುದೇ ಹೊಸ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಬಂದ್ರು ನಾವು ಧಾರವಾಡದಿಂದ ಹುಬ್ಳಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆವಾಗ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ ನಾವು ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡದ ನಡುವೆ ಪ್ರತಿ 5 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಬಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು, ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಬಸ್ ಟ್ರೈನ್. ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅ 2 trailer and bus trailer. Actually, essentially it's a bus with a main engine and the first this one and a coach behind. Yeah. ಅಷ್ಟು ನಡೀತಾ ಇರೋ ಊರು ಆವಾಗ್ಗೆ ಆಗ್ಲಿಂದ ಇವತ್ತಿನವರೆಗೆ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಈ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಾಗೆ ಒಂದು ದಿವಸ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮೈ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಶನ್ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಒಂದು BRTS ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ. ಅವತ್ತು ಮಂಜುಳಾ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅಡಿಷನಲ್ ಚೀಫ್ ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿ ಅವರು ಇದ್ರು. ಆವಾಗ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ BRT ಮಾತು ನಡೀತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಆ ಮಾತಾಡೋ ಹೊತ್ತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಚರ್ಚೆಗೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ನಾನು ಈ ವಿಷಯ ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಬಸ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇತ್ತು ನಾವು ಓದಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಈಗಿನ್ನೂ ಅದರ ರಿಲೆವೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಮಾತಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವರು ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹುಡುಗರ ಜೊತೆ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಜೆಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಸಜೆಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು we did a small study with our students of planning. It's about a 3-month study. We submitted it. ಅವತ್ತು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ಮಂಜುಳಾ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಇಂದ ನುಪುರ್ ಗುಪ್ತಾ ಅವರು ಬಂದಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹಲೋ am I audible?
Yes sir, you're audible.
Okay. I'm not able to share my screen as that. I don't know.
Sir, can you transfer it to the admin?
Okay.
He can help you in sharing your screen.
I did that yesterday directly, but therefore I thought we will be able to. Yep, no problem. I'll do that.
Sir, I also think there are lots of requests to talk in English.
I will do that.
Yeah,
I'm just only.
Yeah, I understood it. You're giving your introduction.
I just thought. ಬಹಳ ವರ್ಷ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ one would like to.
Have you sent to him?
Sir, it is just going.
Okay.
ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ? किसको भेजना है? Hello.
Admin. Who has sent you a mail? You can send to admin.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, I have shared my email address on chat box also.
No, just a second. Oh, this is no reply. It is saying admin chat box Imran at. Okay, 1 second. Imran Khurshid, yes. Yeah, I sent it and message has been sent. Okay. Imran, it's there at your desktop. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with esteemed members of the Institute of Town Planners India. We always respectfully acknowledge the support, guidance, and enabling of all our work, which happens from our chairman, Dr. Meshram. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for being there for the entire planning professionals in the country. I also would like to thank Secretary General and Director Karnataka Town Planning Organization, and also Vanu Sab and Dr. Anjali. It's a pleasure to be there with you all on this panel. As I said, I belong to Karnataka, a small village in Bellary district, Sindigeri. I did my initial education in my village itself, then a nearby village, and then came to Dharwad for my graduation and also post-graduation. Then came to Ahmedabad for my planning degree. Yeah. Have you received Irfan?
He has received, he is putting on,
All
sharing
right,
his
sir.
screen.
All right, sir. It's important for us to note that what we have always had, for somehow in the name of modernization, we tend to lose them either by default or sometimes by design. I was just narrating in Kannada the story of Hubli Dharwad connectivity when we were students in 1975, 76, 77, 78, 79. Okay, those years, there used to be so much connectivity between Hubli Dharwad, which is still there. Almost there, every 2-3 minutes, there used to be a bus flying between Hubli and Dharwad. There also used to be express buses as well as regular buses. There used to be something called a bus train.
Now your
where-
presentation is there.
Yes, sir. Bus train, where, just go to the first slide, please. And given that kind of a situation, we thought it would be useful, and we did it as part of a student's work along with Additional Chief Secretary Dr. Manjula Subramaniam. There were several visits by the then Chief Minister Shettar Saab, Prahlad Joshi, as well as Senior Bellad and Junior Bellad, and many other local political leaders visited Ahmedabad. They looked at Ahmedabad as a model and decided, rather than doing something else, it's better that we do a BRT. I'm talking about bus to BRT as a way towards sustainable mobility on this day as part of this ITPI webinar. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Can you give me control of the slides? Are you okay? Hubli Dharwad BRTS project is implemented as a part of the Sustainable Urban Transport Program (SUTP) of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and partnered in this program is Government of Karnataka, and jointly supported by Global Environmental Facility and the World Bank. Next slide, please. This is a special purpose vehicle which manages Hubli Dharwad BRTS project, and that is HT BRTS company. And then operations are actually undertaken by NWKRT. It's a very interesting arrangement where you have a special purpose vehicle in the form of a company registered under Companies Act, and then NWKRTC, actually it's another public sector organization which operates through an MOU between SPV and NW. Yeah, and then the project design was done by the Center of Excellence in Urban Transport, Safety University. Next slide, please. System was inaugurated by Sri Venkaiah Naidu on 2nd February 2020. And before the Vice President inaugurated this, the trials were on for almost nearly 8 to 9 months. On a trial basis, the system was running. Total cost of the project of this 22-kilometer long corridor, 970 crores. But then remember, about 40% of this cost is attributable to mainly the land acquisition, other resettlement, rehabilitation work. Therefore, it's one of the very well thought out, even in terms of the social angle as well. It also has been recently awarded as Mobility Excellence Award by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Government of India. Next slide, please. The project began initially as a four laning of the existing highway between Hubli and Dharwad. Then when this whole discussion of the BRT happened, what happened that 4 laning became 8 laning, and then the entire requirement of the additional 4 lanes for BRT was created through the land acquisition under the project funds. Next slide, please. This is an interesting slide, and I would like you to pay attention to this. There are two sets of pie charts. On the top, you have at 3 locations, Hubli, Navnagar, and Dharwad. You have number of vehicles which are plying along the road during the day. And then in the bottom, you have the passengers carried in these vehicles during the day. If you look at this, in terms of the vehicles, 67% of the vehicles composing in that stretch actually are private vehicles, that is cars and two-wheelers. And the buses only constitute about mere 7% of the whole thing. Whereas in terms of the passengers, buses carry 70% of the passengers. And that's the kind of disparity in distribution in terms of the space used by each vehicle and the number of persons the vehicle carry. And that itself goes to say that you need to shift from driving to bus culture. I think that is the whole theme on which we are talking about. Next, please. The choice one attempts to make when we were discussing the BRT, there are several people thought that we must build a metro rail. There are also people who said, why not a monorail, why not a tram, and why not an LRT? This becomes a very regular feature all over. There are several companies made lots of presentations both to the political as well as executive wing. Finally, it was decided that BRT is a better choice. I'll tell you in the next slide why BRT is a better choice. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the BRT Ahmedabad slide. Next one. Yeah. We have about 8, actually now 9, 10 metro systems in the country implemented since the year 2002 till date, and all of them are functioning. Look at the ridership and the network length. Yeah, with actually operational network length of 24 kilometers, which is something similar to the BRT Ahmedabad. Number of passengers carried in Kochi are about 60,000 per day, whereas BRT Hubli Dharwad carries about 1 lakh. And if you remove the buses on the side, private buses, it will carry about 1,40,000. I think that's the kind of a number we are talking about. Same thing you can look at Lucknow, you can look at Chennai, which is similar. Okay, only 1 lakh, whereas 45-kilometer network. Therefore, investing thousands of crores of rupees and not really attracting passengers is a waste of national resource. Therefore, what is more appropriate to start with? You need to develop bus-based systems, and therefore BRTS was chosen. Next, please. BRTS was conceived as a network starting from Hubli Central Bus Station to Dharwad Central Bus Station, and then between this is a trunk line, and then there are inside Hubli, inside Dharwad, there are a few major corridors where we are suggesting initially dedicated feeders, and then the rest of the network also was estimated to become feeding to the BRT network. And therefore we are talking about trunk and a feeder network because there is a huge difference between the flows on the corridor and then inside the city. Inside the city, flows are in the range of 600 to 1,200. On the corridor, it is about 4,500 to 5,500 persons per hour in the peak direction. And that itself makes it necessary to have a better and more efficient system. The system is designed for carrying up to 12,000, and with some minor modifications, it can carry up to 25,000 passengers per hour per peak direction. And which is, any metro system would carry, most metro systems are designed to carry about 25,000 to 30,000, and this BRT is designed to carry 25 to 30,000. Therefore, it can sustain the requirements of Hubli Dharwad for the next 3, 4, 5 decades. And that's the way it is. One can look at. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, it's proposed as a trunk and feeder system, corridor connectivity. Actually, it connects the central business districts of both the towns as well as Navnagar. And then the right of way has been segregated such that it is 4 lanes for BRT and 4 lanes for mixed traffic. And then in the city where the right of way is limited, BRT takes only 3 lanes instead of 4 lanes. And then operational balancing has been done, wherein you have, while it is going out of the city, it stops at all the stops. When it enters the city, it only stops at a few stops there. And that kind of an operational arrangement makes it more efficient in terms of land utilization. We also made attempts to take advantage of the terrain, and therefore the structures, especially the bridges and the flyovers, have been done such a way to accommodate the potential provided by the terrain. And then scalability is also there. As and when you want to extend and expand the system, you could do that both on either side as well as in the middle at Navnagar. Next slide, please. As I said, it's a 3-lane within the city and a 4-lane outside the city in between, which has a 33-meter right of way. BRT is dedicated, grade separators are there. 2 to 2.5 meter footpath. It's a complete street development, and footpath is an essential element all through. Green buffer is there, and then parking is provided, limited places, not everywhere. And then underground utilities were done while BRT was designed, and therefore you don't have to dig the road every now and then. Next slide, please. Yeah. The city aims at integrated accessibility, and therefore city has designed both in Dharwad as well as in Hubli. Feeder routes have been identified, and then every route now will have 5 minutes and 8 minutes headway. Today, as of today, that's pre-COVID situation, the frequency was as high as, headway was as high as 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. In an urban area, 30-minute frequency for a city bus is not a good idea. Therefore, we have redesigned it for 5 to 8 minutes. There is a clear-cut parking plan, and there is also revised city development strategy being thought of to strengthen the network, because there is no east-west connectivity in the Hubli Dharwad network plan as of now, and therefore east-west connectivity is also something which creating road network to a large extent has been proposed there. Densification of the corridor, especially in and around Navnagar, has been suggested. Next slide, please. Okay, then in terms of the system development, unlike many cities where you develop just a corridor and then relieve everything else, this particular project took cognizance of the entire city bus as well as the regional bus infrastructure. We have built regional bus terminals. We have used, we have developed all the depots, terminals, as well as the BRT network. Complete infrastructure of public transport in Hubli and Dharwad has been revamped as part of this project. And I have no hesitation in saying probably this is one of the best bus infrastructure in the country today. Next slide, please. Yep, this is some glimpses of bus infrastructure which has been created as part of this project. It's the most advanced level of infrastructure. You have a city bus depot, you have land reserved for TOD in the future, you have a regional bus terminal, feeder bus terminal, BRT stations, footover bridges with elevators, and then the terminal for suburban services and the bus depots at 3 places. I think all of this infrastructure and more is also being created as part of this project. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of technology, the smart mobility part which Kapoor Saab talked about, automated fare collection system has been introduced, smart cards are introduced, automatic vehicle location has been provisioned, and therefore passengers will know which is the next bus. Passengers at the station will know when is the next bus arriving. Okay, and then all the information which is required for monitoring the bus movement as well as the private vehicle movement is managed and monitored at the control center, and then control center acts like a brain of the whole system there, and it can also actually support mobility within the city in case of any disasters happening, and that can become communication system can be made available for a overall surveillance as well, and therefore it is state of the art ITS technology implemented project for efficient mobility management. Next, please. Yep. We say that we should ride the bus with a pride. It is one of the advanced high quality bus system. It's a Volvo bus, 12-meter AC bus. It's a pleasure to ride that bus. It's comfortable, it is safe, and it is affordable fares. 100% premium AC Volvo buses are there. BS4 compliant, UBS2 compliant. It provides for wheelchair person to access the bus station, also provides boarding alighting because boarding alighting is at grade. Onboard PIS video is there, surveillance system. Passenger seats are reserved for women, senior citizen, and also Divyang. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, safety, when you talk about, and then it's signalized junction controls are there for people to access bus station. You don't really have to cross the road. In fact, you have elevators, you have foot-over bridges, and that makes it easy for people to cross the road. Next, please. And it also shows how people can walk in and walk out of the bus. The picture below actually shows people boarding, alighting, and then how close the bus can come in. I think that's the advantage of this at-grade boarding, alighting facility. Next slide, please.
Ami, can you?
Almost there, sir. Almost there.
Okay.
2 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
And it is a system for all. Equity is important, equity in fare and equity in accessibility. Next slide, you can have the blind, the wheelchair, all of that is also provided for. One more, 2 more slides, sir. Next slide. Okay, there's a big, next slide, please. Community participation has been part and parcel of the entire project development. Probably one of the project which called for series of participatory processes at various points in time with various stakeholders. Some of the pictures are there for you to see there. Next slide, please. Green, I think the plantation, 25,000 to 30,000 saplings have been planted. And as of now, survival rate is about 72%. I think that's a very remarkable achievement. Next slide, please. Yep. There are 100 buses. They run about 26,000 kilometers, carry about 1 lakh passengers. And EPKM is about 40 and CPKM is about 60, a gap of about 20 rupees. And there are private buses which carry another 35,000 on this corridor. If those buses are stopped, then this system will carry about 1,35,000. and the ridership has only increased every day. And now that the system is halted, in the next few days, BRTS Hubli Dharwad will again come into, it's already started operating. Now they're actually introducing feeder buses to the BRT. Next slide, please. In terms of the savings, it's one of the highest speed. The metro systems achieve a speed of about 35 to 38 kilometers per hour, and Hubli Dharwad Express service achieves a speed of about 35 kilometers, and then the regular bus speed is about 30 kilometers. I think that's a remarkable speed for a bus system to achieve, equivalent to that of a metro system. The time savings is about 35% for all passengers, and 21% increase in intercity ridership along the BRT corridor between 2017 to 2019. And there is about 26% shift from two-wheelers and four-wheelers onto BRT. Increased safety is an important aspect. From 133 accidents recorded in 2012, it came down to 17 for the first 8 months in 2019. I think that's a big change in terms of the safety there. Next slide, please. Key messages, the final concluding slide. Invest in bus system for sustainable mobility. Not the rail, not the mono, not anything else. Bus has to be developed, and then you can think of metro and other higher level systems. And BRT is a better choice than any other railway systems. You need to adopt an integrated approach, high standards, quality is important, leverage technology, adopt participatory process. Pricing has to be right. You cannot outprice people to look for other modes. Scalability is very important. Would like to thank ITPI, Government of Karnataka, DULT for giving us this opportunity to work with them on this project, and also for all of you for being a patient listeners of this presentation. Thank you. We need to celebrate success of the BRT, the bus system, a sustainable system. I think need to replicate it at many other places. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swamy. The most dynamic city, twin city of Karnataka. And this particular project, the BRTS for Hubli Dharwad, has been conceived by the present Commissioner of Urban Land Transport, Department of Urban Land Transportation. She is the senior most IAS officer of the Government of Karnataka, Madam Manjula, who has contributed, for the implementation, conceiving the project as well as implementation of the project. We congratulate her on this occasion of this one. And I also thank Dr. Swamy for his excellent presentation on the BRTS and sustainable mobility. He has given us the overall picture of the how the BRTS system is being implemented, conceived, and how the technology is being used in this particular project. Now, may I request Sri Shashikumar, the Director of Town Planning, Government of Karnataka, to address the gathering, to address the attendees in few minutes. Mr. Shashikumar.
Yes, it's audible, sir.
Yeah, it is audible. Please go ahead.
So, ellarigu namaste, sir. First of all, I congratulate the chairman, KRC Bangalore, has been organized the program webinar in the interested topic, sir. This technical session is a very important one and a very great help to our planning community as well as our department people. I am happy to participate in this program, the webinar, with the esteemed guests and the dignitaries. I wish this program to a great success, sir. Thank you, one and all. I think Kapurji has narrated everything. We have to address those issues in the for our planning, preparing master plans in future. So kindly arrange such programs. I am requesting you. Today I am wishing all great success of this program, sir.
Admin, can you please? You want to say something, Shashi?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's all, sir. That's all. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much,
Thank you all.
Shashi, for having graced this occasion. Now I request Sri Lakshmikant Pawar to introduce the second speaker, Dr. Anjali. Admin, can you please connect and put his image on the screen? Lakshmikant Pawar. Imran ji.
Sir,
Yeah, can you please put Mr. Pawar, Lakshmikant Pawar on the screen and his mic also on? Meanwhile, I request Anjali to get prepared for the presentation.
Lakshmikant is connected now.
Is connected? Not connected?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. If it is not connected, there is some kind of
Good afternoon, sir. I am connected.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Lakshmikant Pawar, please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Introduce Dr. Anjali Kalur Mohan to the attendees.
Good afternoon to one and all. Good afternoon to one and all.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am here to introduce the key speaker, Dr. Anjali Mohan. Dr. Anjali Mohan is an urban and regional planner with a PhD in urban e-governance and public policy. Her research and professional practice over the last 27 years straddles development, institutional and policy frameworks, urban planning and management, and information and communication technologies and development ICT. She has successfully completed several planning assignments in her individual capacity teams, both as a team leader and a team member. She is a partner at Integrated Design, a Bangalore-based planning and design practice, and a visiting faculty at the Center for Public Policy at National Law School University in India, Bangalore, and the Takshashila Institutions, a public policy think tank headquartered in Bangalore, India. She has published in academic journals as well as popular media, in addition to delivering talks and presenting her work globally. She has served on several task force and expert committee. And I welcome her, and over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Pawarji, for introducing our second speaker. Now, may I request Dr. Anjali to start her presentation. Dr. Anjali.
Thank you, Mr. Honor. Good afternoon, everybody. Yellargu namaskara. And thank you to the Karnataka Regional Chapter for giving me this opportunity to speak today. As I have mentioned, as already been mentioned, that I am going to focus on how, as planners, we need to move beyond the master plan tool if we are to manage and steer India's cities and towns effectively. So I'm going to be a little bit provocative in my talk. Mr. Kapoor has already actually laid forward the provocation in some ways, and therefore my task is a lot easier, but I'm going to carry forward the same conversation. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll start with this definition of the city. Yeah, I quite like this this definition because there are various conceptions, various definitions, various understandings of the city. But here, J.M. Crook tells us that a city is everything. It can be a geographical accident, a defense unit, a trading post. It can be a cultural symbol, a focus of power. It can also be a state of mind. And in fact, it can be all these things and much more. And if we were to take this understanding of the city, I think a fundamental question that we have to ask as professionals to ourselves is, does the current conception and process of master planning respond to such an understanding? So are we able to actually, within the master planning process, envelop all these comprehensions of the city? And if the answer is no, which is, if I was to answer this question honestly to myself, I think the answer is no. That leads us to the second question, that has the current conception or process then rendered itself redundant? And I'm going to focus a little bit in answering these questions to say, well, I don't see it as redundant, but I do see it as very ineffective, which has also been acknowledged. And I will explain why that is happening. So, you know, in our context, a city is, there is a lot that is, especially not just cities in India, but I would say cities in the global south. This binary or the dichotomy that we have between the planned and the unplanned, or the informal and the formal, is in more ways than not, it is not desirable. In fact, there is enough and more arguments which actually say that the starting point for planning cities in the Indian context is to a large extent, are you able to hear me? Hello? Okay. So to a large extent, the planning for the cities has to start from the informal, from the unplanned. Yeah. Now, there are also these arguments that planning in India is, the way we practice it today, is really an uncritical import from the colonial times. And we continue to hold these practices, whereas many of these countries have moved on. And this critique is largely based on the primary mode of planning that we are resorting to today, which is largely your land use planning. There are arguments that this is incongruent with the existing morphology of many Indian cities where mixed land use has been the norm, right? Okay, so I will start off a little bit in kind of addressing this critique to, I'm using the case of the Karnataka Town and Country Planning Act to actually say that there are issues in the statutory frameworks within which we are planning. And to begin with, these frameworks themselves need to be rehashed in more ways than one. While this is the case of the Karnataka Town and Country Planning Act, but I have looked at Delhi, Hyderabad, Chennai, and several other cities, Mumbai, and these are not very different. So while we are talking about land use planning and zoning regulations, but if you look on the right hand of the screen, there are lots of key words that are missing from our statutory frameworks. For example, there are many acts, most acts do not mention the whole concept of the mixed land use. We don't talk about mobility, which is largely a people-centered concept. It's about people and citizens. Rather, we talk about, the acts are rather infrastructure focused. You're talking about street patterns and how do you lay out these street patterns. This is not to say that street patterns are not important, but the concepts, the more recent concepts of mobility and other concepts that have begun to be acknowledged within the larger planning framework do not find space in our acts. What about the commons, the valleys, the lakes, and the watersheds? Of course, our plans, our statutory acts talk about areas for parks, playgrounds, and recreational uses, but we don't talk about the larger ecological layers, which have a very, very critical role to play in rendering our cities resilient. Then there are, of course, questions about who is doing this planning. Where are the municipalities in this whole process of planning? Where are citizens? Where are we talking about there is very little space for a citizen-centric process within our planning frameworks. And finally, where do we start to account, for instance, for resource planning? While we are focusing exclusively on land use planning, planning for our natural resources does become very, very critical when we are looking at cities, and these are part and parcel of our cities. Also, who owns the plan? Whose plan is it? These are fundamental questions that we need to ask. So while there are, most of us are planners, are either part of planning authorities or we are working for planning authorities. And therefore, we are planning for the cities that where the master plans are being prepared. More often than not, the implementation authority for these cities is either the municipalities or a host of other authorities. Now, if the plan is being planned by, if the planning is being done by one authority and the implementation is being done by another one, there are obvious gaps. There is a problem of enforcement and implementation. So if we were to move forward, yeah, and this is where I would just like to concentrate a little bit more after having laid this context. I think there are I make arguments, there are several ways of addressing these issues, but I make arguments for four overarching points. The first, which has many planners have been kind of pushing for a while, is that there is a need for a multi-scalar spatial planning framework. And I argue that the master plan in itself is not redundant process. However, nor is it a redundant tool, nor is it a redundant process. However, it is only a link in a longer chain. And there are links which are missing both at the upper end and especially at the lower end. So we do have regional plans in some cities, not all, but most cities lack the lower level sub-municipal plans. And these are links that are very critical if we were to make our master plans more effective. The second aspect that I kind of argue for is that there is a need to converge spatial planning, land use planning, with socio-cultural and political planning. And if we were to do this, it is very critical that planning education within the country starts to get reimagined within the larger context, both planning education as well as planning profession. It needs to be reimagined within the larger context of urban studies. And finally, I think what is very, very critical and a missing link is that how do you secure budget allocations for implementing our plans? It's a huge gap in our system. I'll just kind of pick up a few of the projects that I have been working on and where some of these things have happened, but we have not linked it to the master planning process. The first one is the case of, I'm taking the case of the Bangalore metropolitan region, where we actually looked at the regional plan. In fact, Mr. Honur was our client at that point in time. And the regional, we actually looked at the regional plan as a larger resource plan that will provide the framework for lower level plans, right? So just to kind of reiterate here, it's not just that you need to have plans or links within the planning hierarchy of the regional plan and the lower level plan, but I think it's also extremely critical to define what is the nature of these plans. So at the regional plan, one of the things that we have, regional level, one of the things that we have been arguing consistently for is that this plan has to be largely a resource plan, natural resource plan. And this is very critical if we were to, or if we are to move towards the much desired goal of resilience. So in the case of Bangalore metropolitan region, we actually we prepared a resource plan where we started to look at the idea of land capability, where we said that, you know, various parameters define the capability of land, whether these are environmental parameters, transportation parameters, demographic parameters, economic parameters. And it's not here that the ecology is outweighing all the other parameters, but you do need a judicious balance between these parameters. And once these are layered, the various parameters are layered, you can understand what should be the capability of land for a particular function. And if we were to do such an analysis and inform our planning, it makes a lot more sense. So here what we had suggested was that if you were to map all the natural resources in the region and map these upfront as positive constraints that are non-negotiables. Yeah, so whether this is your lake and valley systems, these are your watersheds, these are your forests, these are any of the tanks that the city has, map them upfront at the regional level. So here what you're seeing is this is Bangalore City for which the master plan is prepared, and this is the larger region for which the regional plan is prepared. And here we were, this is about 1300 square kilometers, whereas the larger region is about 8,000 square kilometers. And we know that natural resources do not know administrative boundaries. So these have to be mapped at a much larger regional scale. And once you map these, you put them down as constraints, but positive constraints, which cannot be tampered with. Following that, the lower level plans have to respect these constraints and start to do the planning within that. It's in the absence of such planning that we are having a lot of issues in cities where you're seeing floods, you're seeing a lot of climate change issues. You're either seeing situations of either a drought or a flood. So there is very little normalcy that we see in cities today. So this is as far as the regional plan is concerned. Another project that we had worked on and which we have concluded recently is for the city of Ranchi. We worked on enhancing water security in communities, and this we worked with some of the poor communities, the low income communities in the city of Ranchi, where we collaboratively and collectively defined the problem. What was the problem that the communities were facing, and how do you frame some of the solutions to these problems? Who are the main stakeholders? All this was done over a period of time where we actually signed agreements with the communities to say that this is what we will be doing and this is what the role will be of the various stakeholders. And post that discussion, we actually then implemented some of the solutions which looked at revival and restoration of community wells while also grey water management. Now, this was at a sub-municipal level, the lower level of planning that was conceived and implemented. And mind you, the point over here that I'm trying to make is that this is completely independent of the master plans. Yeah? So there is a master plan for the city of Ranchi, which gives a larger level picture and talks about some proposals, but some of the issues at the local level have to be conceived and worked at that level. And that's very much possible. But unfortunately, our master plans and the frameworks within which master plans are being prepared are not allowing for such conceptualizations. Okay, with this, I move on to the second part of my second point that I was making. And here also, I'm going to pick up one of the projects that I had worked for the Cities Alliance, World Bank, and the National Institute of Urban Affairs. Here, we looked at how spatial and socio-cultural and political planning can be converged. Now, again, this is outside the master planning framework, and these are specific projects that we are talking about. But there is the point to be noted here is that there is no link here again to the master plan. This was looking at the inclusive revitalization of Karnataka's historic cities and towns. The heritage element had been foregrounded, and this was done for the North Karnataka region, where heritage is a major resource which can be tapped into to provision contemporary development. Now, the approach itself was very, very different, as you can see on the screen. And this was very much embedded, again, within the communities with whom we were discussing. And there were several layers of analysis that were done, even within heritage. It was not just about the built heritage. It was not just about the monuments that the region is very rich in. It hosts 2 of the World Heritage Sites, and two or three of them are already on the listing, ready for listing. Now, what we did was that apart from the built heritage, we looked at natural heritage, we looked at cultural heritage, and how livelihoods and everyday practices are embedded within these layers of heritage, right? And basis that, we then started to identify what are some of the important infrastructure projects or important investments that the region requires, because the idea is to enhance the development in the region, which is actually a backward region. So we looked at various, for example, I have just picked up the idea of weaving and textiles over here. The area is very rich in textiles and has the Illical sari of the area has got a GI tag, but when you go to the villages, they are languishing. The handloom industry is literally dying in the area. So one of the things we did was start to identify what are the backward forward linkages that exist, how had they historically evolved, and why does it exist where it is. And basis that, we started to then suggest what are some of the clusters that are emerging and how does one start to implement projects within these clusters to strengthen some of the local economies. Now, this is a project which has again been accepted, and there is, it is getting implemented in bits and pieces by the government of Karnataka, and there is a talk to implement some of the larger projects that have already been identified. Now, the point over here that I'm making is that it is again, each of these areas, if you go down, many of the cities will have master plans, but this entire project has been conceived outside the master plan framework, and which is an unfortunate thing. Yeah. So this is the second point that I'm making, that we need to, for example, kind of look at how do you spatial planning and socio-cultural and economic planning, how it can be converged. Now, the third part that I kind of focus on consistently is that urban planning has to account for urban life. And as of now,
Anjali, can you conclude, please?
Yes, another two to 3 minutes. So as of now, we are not really doing that. And if we were to do this, then it requires a much more elaborate collaborative effort, and many skills need to come together. Finally, I'll spend very little time on it, but we all know that there are no budget allocations, whether it is at the regional master or low-level plan for the plan itself. There may be budget allocations for the sectors that the plan is trying to address, but I think this needs to be secured to, for example, secure the legitimacy of the planning process. Finally, my concluding slide, just to kind of sum up as to what should be done. I think there is a need to move on from this land use planning process to a resource-based planning process. And here in my slide, I'm not showing an either or situation. The land use planning is critical, but it has to be embedded within the larger resource-based planning. We need to move from an economic understanding of land to an ecological understanding of land. This is very critical if we are to move towards resilience. Currently, most of our plans are identified, and we plan for what is called the local planning area, right? The LPAs. We do need to move towards a region, city, and ward plan, a hierarchy of plans which are dovetailed and which are nested. We need to move on from a single stakeholder effort, which is largely embedded within development authorities and the planners there, to a multi-stakeholder effort. And we need to move from a single plan to a hierarchy of plans. So we need multiple plans. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anjali, for having presented an excellent presentation on the tool beyond master plan tool and all. I think all of us know that the master plan has been practiced in India for many decades. I think there are certain kind of shortcomings out there, and I thank you for your positive critical analysis of the present system of preparing the master plans. I think it should be, I request Mr. Shashi Kumar to note certain points which has been raised by Anjali, so that it can be addressed in your routine work, and you can do certain constructive work in your department. And she has also mentioned about the metropolitan planning, that is the structure plan. When I was working in the metropolitan Bangalore Metropolitan Region Development Authority, that particular project was on, and Anjali was head of the planning section, and wherein we have introduced one of the important concept of land capability analysis, which is more important now. Therefore, when I said earlier, the urban flooding and the misuse and use and misuse of land use and the conflicting areas are coming. Where developments are coming. So all these issues can be tackled, can be addressed through land capability analysis. With this, we thank Dr. Anjali Karol Mohan for her excellent presentation on tool beyond master plan. Thank you so much. Now, question and answers for about 10 minutes. I think there are no questions. I have been there in the chat box. If anybody has anything to ask for that one, I keep the session for questions so that we will be able to answer those questions.
Mr. Srinivas is there. He has raised some issues in chat box.
Yeah, that
If he
is
can be
regarding
connected.
budgetary allocation and other things.
Yeah.
Anjali, can you please throw some light on budgetary implications on that one?
Sir, the point that I was making was that, right now, see what happens when we prepare a master plan. The master plan gets prepared and then implementation begins to happen in bits and pieces, and that's the way it has to be. It will not get done in one go. But having said that, for example, a water supply and sanitation scheme, they have their own budgets. Now, many a times, and we have faced this in Bangalore very recently, where there is very little convergence between what the water supply department is planning and implementing to what the master plan is saying. So if there is either there has to be a compulsory alliance with the master plan, or all projects should stem from the master plan, or there should be, it is very clear, or there should be a budgetary allocation for the implementation of the larger master plan, which can then be broken down into programs and projects. So I think this is a gap because of the way budgets and allocations are done. There is also very little credibility of the master plan itself. So I think that is very, very critical to kind of address. In the short term, it can be made that while there are departmental allocations, the projects should speak to the master plan, but over the long term, the master plan also has to be strengthened in its conception and framing, has to become the overarching document within which the steering and managing of the city should happen.
Yeah, Anjali, we have another question raised by Sri Raghunath. What do you mean by multiple stakeholders' efforts and multiple plans?
So I did explain that in my presentation. Right now, many a times, for most cities, the master plan is largely embedded within the development authority. There may be conversations here and there with a few departments, but you do not really even start to think horizontally within the state machinery, nor do we move beyond the non-state stakeholders. So I think when I say multiple stakeholders, a water supply department is as critical as any other department in running and managing the city. So why is a water supply department not taken on board when preparing the master plan? So what I'm saying is that even within the state, all these stakeholders have to be part of the master planning process. That's the first. When I'm saying multi-scalar planning, I'm referring to plans at different scales. This is very much laid out in the 74th Constitution Amendment Act, which has not been successfully implemented. But in my presentation, I did show that the city has to be understood in context of its region, and therefore the need for a regional plan, which will give the top-down framework within which the lower level plans, which are your sub-municipal level plans, whether this is at the ward level or even to begin with at the planning district level, these plans have to emerge as a bottom-up process. So each of these should be statutory plans at their own scales. Unless we don't do that, I think again, the master plan becomes a very weak link in the larger chain. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. And we know that master plan has its own limitations. We tried, when we were finalizing the master plans for the Bangalore Metropolitan Region Planning Authorities, we tried to have, how to implement, how to conceptualize the proposals of master plan into reality. We tried to include certain things because, master plan has its own limitation at macro level, like the intersection plans, the mobility plans, the water supply, the industrial development, and other micro level developments will have to be addressed. But the master plan itself has its limitations of broad land use, planning and other things. Anyway, that was a good presentation. And now, if there are no questions, we can move to the next, concluding remarks by our chief guest, Dr. Mesram, Institute of Town Planners, New Delhi. Please, Dr. Mesram.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my the signals are not there, but then I would like to say a few words. First, thanks for inviting me to be the part of you only. On the desk, there are very important persons like Sri Shashi Kumarji, Director Town Planning and Guest of Honor, Sri Pradeep Kapoorji, Secretary General ITPI and also the Guest of Honor. Of course, the Chairman, Sri S.V. Honur Saab, Chairman of the KRC, and Shri Narayan Gowda ji, Secretary KRC. It was an excellent presentation to start with my colleague and friend. We are working together for last 25-30 years. Shivanand, of course, as usual, he is the proponent of the BRTS and definitely he would like to propagate the BRTS. And that is what he has said while closing his remarks, that BRTS is the better choice. But I'm thankful to him that he has also said ultimately that it is required to be integrated with the other modes also. Thank you, Shivanand, for saying this. What you have said as far as the BRTS is concerned is that 22 kilometer has costed 917 crores, out of which 40% has gone for the land acquisition. I have calculated for you. So the cost works, excluding the cost of the land acquisition, the cost works rupees 26 crores per kilometer, which is really a excellent thing as far as the economics and financing is concerned if you compare with the metro and all these things. So that is very good. You have also said that it can carry up to 25,000 and it can passengers per hour. You also said that it can also be extended to 35,000 passengers per hour. But then if you compare these figures with the metro, that carries 40,000 to 80,000 passengers per hour. So in the metro like Delhi, this 25,000 may not work because we wanted more passengers to be carried as far as the population, those who are availing the facility of the metro is much more in comparison with your BRTS where you are provided. Again, you also said that if you wanted to compare with the speed, definitely the metro will be slightly better. That is very good. The second speaker, Dr. Anjali, has raised so many issues as far as the master plan is concerned. I would not like to answer all the issues raised by her, but would like to say a few words. The same questions were asked to me when I was the chief planner to the government of India. So what I did, everybody started saying that the master plan is a static document, it is not dynamic, it is not having the provisions for the revision and all these things. So what we did is that in the year, as a follow-up of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, we organized a national level workshop in the year 1995 in the Vigyan Bhavan, where not only the planners, but the engineers, architects, and your secretary of the Karnataka government were also present at that time, who was holding the charge of the urban development. And this national workshop was for 2 days. Ultimately, there was a single recommendation which is emerged and which has been read out by the Joint Secretary of the then Ministry of Urban Affairs. I will read for you. Only one sentence is there. Master plan, there is no alternative to the master plan. We have achieved quite a lot by following master plan, and he has summed up by saying there is no alternative to the master plan except to attempt the better master plans which should be transparent. That is what he has said. This is the outcome. And as the outcome of this, the Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India, in the year 1995, allotted the work to the Institute of Town Planners of India. for framing the urban development plan formulation and implementation guidelines. If you kindly go through this, then you will get all the answers to the issues which you have raised today by the honorable key speakers. These guidelines have again been revised in the year 2014 by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in the form of Urban and Regional Development Plan Formulation and Implementation Guidelines. For your information, I would like to say, because the speaker has laid a much more emphasis on the regional plan, the planning system which has been recommended in the EURDFI guideline, the first is the perspective plan they are recommended to be prepared, and this perspective plan will give the strategies of the state government at the state level. The second stage plan will be the regional plan. They have said that the regional plan is required to be prepared, and this regional plan includes all the issues raised by the honorable speaker, that is physical setting, geography and region, demography, settlement pattern, transportation, physical and social, economic linkages, social infrastructure, education, healthcare, recreational, religious, etc. As far as the physical infrastructure is concerned, water supply, energy, drainage, mobility, and also the environmental aspect, as has been raised by, also has been covered to the large extent, and what it should contain, that has also been given threadbare in these guidelines. The third level plan is the development plan or the master plan. They have also given the choice of the preparation of the development plan, which is also known as a master plan, followed by the annual plans. And then what has been said about the local area plan has also been included, and the requirements of the local area plans has also been mentioned, and specifically the emphasis has been laid on the preparation of the mobility plan also under the traffic and transportation aspects. So gentlemen and members, I will request you kindly to go through the EURDFI guidelines of the Ministry of Urban Affairs, which has been prepared by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, to get the answer to all your questions. I am thankful to the Karnataka Regional Chapter for giving me the opportunity to be the part of you. But I would like to have one request to the chairman of the KRC, that kindly involve the council members of the ITPI also, who is the representative of the ITPI headquarters, so that we can really discuss and deliberate much more issues. What is the thinking of the ITPI headquarters? I am once again thankful to all of you for giving the patient hearing to me. And I am very sorry that it is not possible for me because my Wi-Fi is not working. Thank you very much once again. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hey.
Manur, you are mute.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much to the Karnataka Regional Chapter, to Mr. Honnu for roping me in. I enjoyed listening to everybody here. Thank you.
Now, may I request Sri Narayan Gowda, Secretary, Karnataka Regional Chapter, to give a vote of thanks. Sri Narayan Gowda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected dignitaries, fellow members, my colleagues and participants, I sincerely thank to Chief Guest Dr. D.S. Meshram, President ITPI New Delhi, for his valuable present and guidance for this event. Thank you, sir. I sincerely thank Mr. Pradeep Kapoor, Secretary General ITPI New Delhi, for being a guest of honor for this event. Thank you, sir. I sincerely thank Mr. Shashi Kumar Rayal, Director of Town and Country Planning, Government of Karnataka, for being the guest of honor for this event. Thank you, sir. I sincerely thank Sri S.B. Honnu, our Chairman, KRC ITPI Bangalore, for hosting this event and making this event a success. Thank you, sir. I also thank today's speakers, Professor Shivanand Swami, SEPT University, Ahmedabad, and Dr. Anjali Karol Mohan, Consulting Urban and Regional Chapter, for sharing their valuable knowledge to the participants. Thank you, sir. Lastly, I thank to all the participants who participated in this event and making this event successful. Once again, thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank all of you having participated in this webinar. And thank you very much. The program is concluded.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Shivanand
Thank you,
Swami,
sir. Thank you.
Anjali, Professor Mesramji, and Pradeep Kapoor and Shashi Kumar. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.